Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr, it doesn't look like London. Is this
still here?
Part two of I didn't go to London and my calf still really hurts. We're going to get into that a little bit more because who knew that there would be yet another recap on Mr. Kerr's calf muscle. I got to say, a year later after my dad's second knee surgery, I am significantly better shape a week in. I'm not drowning quite yet, but been sleeping at the hospital, which has been fun. I am threatening to get on some airplanes over the next couple of weeks, which should be interesting in my exhausted state. But we got a lot to cover that we didn't get to last week, and I blame it on you and your oldness and your calf muscle. So we got to talk a little bit about Flighty. We've got a listener question. We got a question from a Slack member, and then I've got what will be a poll question, but I have an opinion question for you, Mr. Kerr.
I'm known to have opinions from time to time.
No, I've told people many times that Mr. Kerr does not have opinions. So.
Yeah.
And then I want to recap my blade flight too. So a lot to cover. And you're going to recap what it's like to take the train from Atlanta to New York. Oh, maybe that's next week's episode. My bad.
I just got a notification here on my phone from Amazon. I probably do one Amazon order a month, maybe not even that. I know it's shocking everybody, right? Medical compression socks have shipped. So that's great news, everybody. Great news. Gonna be looking fly on my next flight. Get it? Fly on flight. You see what I said? So
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. All right, a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll jump into these topics. If you want to text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion, and as time of recording, TikTok does still exist. Miles to Go podcast on TikTok. One more week. All right, Mr. Kerr, I need the update. Actually, the audience needs the update on on your calf muscle and
how it's completely fine. Good news and bad news there.
Yeah, chapter 3. First, there was a calf muscle tear. First there was a blood clot. Then there wasn't a blood clot. Then there was a calf muscle tear. Chapter 3 of As the Kerr Turns tells us
the calf muscle is fine, but there is a blood clot deep in the calf. Yeah, man. Let's give the brief story and then move on to all the topics people actually want to hear about. We recorded on Monday, the day after I went to the ER, and they told me you have a chronic clot behind the knee. It's fine. It's not going anywhere. But your calf is torn and still bleeding into what they call a hematoma for those medical professionals here, which... Mm-hmm. Shout out to everybody sending me texts and DMs, man. So many people like texting me and DMing me, and a meeting from the Slack community who is an oncologist and a doctor that, kept tabs on me, and all kinds of other people sending me DMs. Dude, it was not feeling any better Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, I started getting some new swelling and some new spots on my leg where I was like, this was not what happened last summer when I tore my calf. Something is wrong. End up back in the ER Wednesday night, have another ultrasound. The doc, that ER experience, what you think the ER, I haven't been to the ER in years, like years for myself, not in like 15 years. They're in a rush. They're understaffed. They got people who are like bleeding out. Like I get it. But they said, nothing's wrong with you, man. We're guessing that you tore your calf again. See an orthopedist on Friday. And I was like, hi, guys, okay. Like, I'm going back. So nothing but painkillers. I'm icing the thing like I've torn my calf, but still, no matter where I put my leg, there's no relief. These new spots on my leg are not making me feel better. Make it Friday, get into the orthopedist office. He looks at me for 15 seconds. He hears my story. He looks at the ultrasound scan, and then he looks at my leg, and he's like, dude, this is not an orthopedic issue. You need to go see the vascular surgeon right now. He's like, I'm going to call him. So he comes back in the office, he's like, hey, the vascular surgeon down the street we work with, he's in procedures all day today. He doesn't see people today, but I told him your story, and he just drive over there right now. It's 5 minutes down the road and get in. So I go over there, just meet, I can't tell you the last time I walked out of a doctor's office thinking, wow, those people actually care about me. Like, those people really, and I get it. That's a whole other world we don't have because of the pressures that doctors and medical staff are underneath these days. But this staff was just amazing. And this doctor spent almost 45 minutes with Emily and I after they had a vascular ultrasound tech do a vein scan. And the tech was like, you got a blood clot right here, man. Like, I'm looking at it right now. This isn't he's like, you got some other spots on your calf, which might be scar tissue from your injury last summer, but you got a blood clot. So the vascular doc came in, still in all of his get up from surgeries he was in all morning, spends 45 minutes with us, tells what's going on, answers all the questions. An amazing shout out Dr. Craddock there in Noonan, Georgia. Just amazing. He was like, we're going to put you on thinners, man, and you should be feeling better within 24, 48 hours after the clot's thinned out. And he was like, we're going to do another scan on you. But he was like, this is probably just a freak thing from you being on the road straight for 3 weeks. He was like, it's cold up in Chicago and New York where you're telling me you were. You're probably dehydrated, and you probably just got you after a long 3 weeks, man. So he was like, we're going to get you some prescription compression socks that you got to wear on every flight from now on. He's like, stay hydrated, do these calf pumps, and like, you'll be fine. He's like, I don't think there's anything else going on with you. And, glad we caught it. And he was like, I'll just be honest with you, man. The ultrasound techs in the ER that do gallstones and livers and pregnancy stuff, man. He was like, unless you're a trained person that does veins all day, which is all my people do, then where the clot is deep in your calf can easily be missed. And I was like, this does not make me feel better whatsoever. So I'm telling you, people, like, if you feel something's wrong, keep advocating for yourself and get into the specialist, whatever you got to do. Dr. Walker, the orthopedist that called and got me in to Dr. Craddock, even though it was surgery day, and the orthopedist finally listened to me and looked at my leg, and he was like, dude, you got to go see the guy now, because blood clots are nothing to mess around with, folks. So leg is feeling better this morning. Pain's definitely gone down, still there, I'm sure, from 6 days of getting jacked up without any treatment. Not good.
Yeah.
But I've learned more about all that stuff than I ever wanted to know. So I'm grounded for a week. He said after a week, if the pain is gone, then again, wear your compression. You're ultra cool. If you guys hadn't seen the compression socks lately, they are just the sexiest thing in the world, man. Let me tell you what. And during the summer, I'll fly in shorts because I just hate being hot on a plane. And it's going to be probably no more. We'll be keeping we won't be flying in shorts with these bad boys here. I mean, these suckers, some of them suckers is thigh high, man. They're like, I don't want Mrs. Kerr to get any ideas when I walk in the bedroom with these sons of guns on, but like
I really, honestly, I was actually just saying the other week, I didn't think you could get any sexier, and yet here we are.
I'm telling you what, man, I'm 38 years old, just crushing the compression stockings. Hopefully a one and done thing, but man, yeah, chilling there for 6 days treating a torn calf muscle that was just a blood clot. You just feel like an idiot, but then you're also like, golly, how many, we just said in the pre-show, like, how many things have been misdiagnosed because somebody goes in the ER and the ultrasound tech just doesn't know what to look for, and you're just relying on this poor young ultrasound tech. Both of mine were very young in the ER; they had to be early 20s. Yeah, and they missed it.
Well, in so many places in the country where there isn't a vascular specialist, so I mean, it's. I would say a couple things. I certainly we're live in Northern Virginia, thankful to have plenty of specialists in the area, and when I had my neck issues, which also sort of folded in a heart issue, being able to see specialists and ask questions and get second opinions was invaluable. So no question about any of that. I have a question for you, and it might be too early to answer this question, but based on where you sit right now, like you said, you should be fine in a week or so. Are you going to wear compression socks on every flight now, or do you think you'll fade out? Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a bit of anxiety now that comes with this. That for 6 days you had a clot in your leg, and you read worst case deep vein thrombosis stories, and 6 days is a really long time to roll the dice. Yeah, I don't really want to do this again, and it's certainly going to be a bit of anxiety, I'm sure, on my first few flights. So yeah, I will be probably wearing those from now. To be honest with you, I had some not prescription compression socks, but I had compression socks that went over my calves on long flights that I flew, and it did make me feel better. Yeah. So I'm sure I'll just wear these from now on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have compression socks per se, but the socks that I wear for travel are, a fairly tight compression level, like sock that goes up over my calves. And, I guess I've just gotten used to wearing them now, and, knock on fake wood, haven't had a clot problem, but, I'm old and definitely not in the best of shape. So, I can totally understand why you would wear them every flight now.
Yeah, but not with shorts. I'll just have jeans on. It'll be fine.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for the complaints about how hot it is on planes now.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. But you know what? Awesome. Better than catching a clot and, killing over it. Thank you to all the people who sent me a message that said, oh my gosh, yeah, my neighbor just died 2 hours after getting off a plane in Minneapolis from a blood clot. I thank you. Thank you for those stories, everybody.
Well, I think the silver lining for you is as you get older, your blood will thin and you'll get colder. So you may sweat less on planes. So That's what you got. That's hopefully what you have coming for you.
Yep.
Well, I am glad to hear the calf muscle's not torn. That means that hopefully you'll be up and about sooner than later and be able to do all the things.
Now, I am having an MRI next week on my calf just because of the different spots that it's on the ultrasound, just to make sure that nothing's going on that caused the clot from the torn calf.
Sure.
So hopefully there's not a chapter 4 into this, and we're going to move on from here and not talk about this anymore.
I hope there's a chapter 4, but I hope it's a really funny chapter 4. So.
Oh yeah, about the cougars on the plane that saw me in the thigh high compressions and shorts, and you're just like, yeah, that one right there. I gotta have him. Gotta have him. He's mine.
I'm imploring the viewers, the listeners out there, that if you see Curry compression socks in the wild, that you take pictures and you
in
send
gym
them
shorts,
so
gym shorts and flip flops with compression socks. Headed up to the week in New York, baby. Let's make it happen. I don't care.
Spirit Airlines, baby, just like that. Let's hit our listener question this week. On this one here, we'll play a little bit of audio for you guys. This is actually, even though it's a listener, is also a friend, and he even says it in the question. Glitter, Mike, glitter. So listen in.
Ed and Richard, this is Glitter Mike calling in with a question. I know Mr. Kerr is quite an expert on redemptions for award travel to and from Asia. And pizza, you're not too shabby yourself. 3 of us are heading to Tokyo Disneyland from LA, hoping to leave May 2nd. We've been looking for award inventory, and I've come to the conclusion that if you don't get it 364 days out, you're kind of stuck waiting until a few weeks before. For those of us out there that are super anxious, I'm kind of curious as to what your advice would be. How do we best plan and plot for how to do this? And secondly, I've got a backup plan. I think that's pretty good to keep just in case of emergency or worst case scenario. I found $1,100 fully refundable coach fares on United to both Haneda and Narita. I've got some plus points burning a hole in my pocket, so I'm thinking maybe book that now, and then worst comes to worst, we have to use it, or if award inventory drops, then we can just cancel it and get that money back. What are your thoughts?
All right, Mr. Kerr, so you heard the recap there. Glitter Mike going back to Tokyo, as you and I and so many others have tried to do over the past handful of years. You spent tons of time there back in the day. Probably a little bit easier to get there many moons ago, but has gotten significantly more difficult. And unless you get lucky or really jump on an awesome deal, getting to Tokyo from pretty much anywhere in the U.S. is pretty cumbersome. Any insights here for our buddy Mike?
Japan's so hot right now. It's Japan tourism is just taking off. Everybody wants to go to Japan. Again, this is where you just go to one of those tools like Point.me or Rome, and you look for what might be available on your dates. They have so many good tools now that show you potential award availability. You get lucky, you plan your whole trip around when that flight availability exists, and you go with it. I would search some secondary cities that have service that people don't think about, like ANA flies to Houston now. Do they still have the San Jose flight? That was one that everybody always overlooked and had good availability.
I don't know if they still have San Jose. Let me Google that.
Yeah, right. Remember, everybody, position. If you live in Des Moines, Iowa, and you just search Des Moines to Tokyo and you go, no flights, that's not going to work. You got to get to where the international gateway is and take the flight from there. And then, everybody's flying to Japan. The capacity is still not what it used to be pre-COVID to Asia. There were flights to Korea, and then from Korea, it's obviously like a short hour flight to Tokyo. Taiwan, same thing. Starlux with Alaska Miles. There's just a lot of different options. So just get to work, use these tools, and check it out.
So flightsfrom.com still lists a Narita flight to San Jose. I didn't dig deeper into frequency and all that stuff. I also, you've got nonstop from a couple other places in Japan, Osaka, Nagoya. You mentioned some of the stuff I've been looking at. Unfortunately, for my trip in April, Starlux, gosh.
It's tough to find.
Yeah, they don't fly every day. They do fly to a handful of U.S. cities. I'd be happy to pay what they charge for a business class ticket. I started looking at them it was probably right before Christmas. So December for an April flight, and the business class cabin was pretty much sold out on all the flights for my date range. And part of that is just because they don't fly every route every day. So would love to have given Starlux a try. Same thing with Zip Air, which is another potential alternative. But again, just, couldn't find availability. They don't fly every day. So those were two things. I'm looking at Incheon right now. It has some stuff that's not super expensive, but I mean, I think I'm almost at this point, 2 months out from my trip, which is a month before Mike's. I think I'm probably going to end up flying premium economy. I don't think I'm going to find 3 business class seats at the rate we're going on the same flight. And we don't really want to separate. So, my 2 cents, Mike, would be, I don't know that I would buy. I could see buying the fully refundable coach fares if they really are 1,100 as a backup plan. But I would absolutely be thinking secondary cities and position out of, even potentially as far away as Singapore, but, Taipei, South Korea, some of the other cities in Japan. I think, when I do searches now using PointsPath, you get PointsPath, it'll say like, so every once in a while you'll see a flight that says not available on miles. And on some of the days that are the highest volume out of Tokyo, it's like 95% of the flights say not available with miles. They're down to just like sprinkling of seats in business class. So
I'm sure if you get 1 million sky miles per person, you can do it on Delta.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah,
I'm sure you could. Yeah. If only I had 3 million sky miles to crank out there for business class flights back. I think I'm gonna be tired coming back from Tokyo. Mike, I hope that helps. It is. I have not. Just consistently across schedule, I've not seen this level of demand to and from a destination like we're seeing right now for Tokyo.
I'm taking just a look again on Skyview, and there's some attractive options here. I just picked random dates in July, which is typically also a busy time. It's from New York to Tokyo in July. There's 60,000 American miles for A321T business class from JFK to SFO in the Japan Airlines premium economy on the Dreamliner to Narita from SFO with an hour and 47-minute layover. That's a solid itinerary there for 60,000 American miles.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's some stuff out there.
Yeah, he's going in May, I'm going in April, so July probably doesn't help us that much. But yeah,
I was just I picked random dates, and the first 3 dates I land on has these and has several of those options. There's probably some, give me your exact dates, Sparkle Mike and Ed, and I'll book your trip. No, I know Sparkle Mike's already got it all taken care of. May 13th. Look at this, Ed. Here, look, I'm gonna do.
I'll give you my exact dates. You tell me what you find.
Good. I'm doing y'all's homework here for you. I'm doing 2 seconds on the Skyview from Rome.travel. You got 240,000 airplane points per person? No, don't want to do that? Okay.
I'm going to go with no. Yeah. I found 190,000 per person, which was like, am I really going to swallow hard and spend 600,000 miles to fly, 600,000 airplane points to fly back?
That's a lot for one flight. Yeah. Japan Airlines or ANA premium economy is just lovely. You're not going to have any complaints about it. It's a long ride, but it's lovely.
I would do it in premium economy. The problem is I'm seeing premium economy is 200,000. So maybe if I can get a 100% transfer bonus from my good friends at Built Rewards.
I know a guy. I'll talk to him about that.
And since we were talking about PointsPath, we're going to we're talking a little bit about my question for you, Mr. Kerr, and our poll question this week, brought to us by the good folks at PointsPath, who were nice enough to help you with that Lufthansa flight that you couldn't take.
Shout out to Julian and those developers. They set up some alerts for me for when Lufthansa first class popped up, and I was hoping for something like into Boston or Dulles so I could get to New York where I had to come from. And wouldn't you know, the A340-600, my favorite plane in the world, first class, popped up yesterday on the exact date I needed it from Frankfurt to JFK. And I was like, this is just salt in the wind, man. But their Lufthansa first class feature has been imprinted on my dashboard here for a couple months in anticipation of what would have been an amazing flight into JFK. So very, very useful tool if you're not using PointsPath.
And I love the part that you're getting mocked by Julian with the tool that he built. All right, so for folks who want to weigh in on our poll question this week, anybody that weighs in via social media, or if you want to text us, leave us a voicemail, email, any of that stuff, we will enter you into a drawing for a free PointsPath subscription. So here's my question, Mr. Kerr. As the American Airlines launched their new lifetime miles tiers. They're out now, so people who have more than 3 million miles lifetime can qualify for Platinum Pro at 4 million lifetime and Executive Platinum at 5 million miles lifetime.
5 million lifetime.
Which is a lot of miles.
Ugh.
We know that United has a similar program. I hit my million miler late last year, but 2 million miles on United isn't as super awesome because the difference between gold and platinum in the United program isn't terribly meaningful. You already have Star Alliance Gold, which is one of the biggest benefits of United status for international travel. So the real goal there would be to get to 4 million miles on United, which with somebody, as you would like to say, at my advanced age is unlikely to do.
Nor do I want you to do that.
But I've had a handful of good experiences on American so far this year. We're going to talk about one that wasn't great from a scheduling standpoint in a little bit. But here's my question for you and for the listeners and the viewers: if you could pick one status to have, one lifetime status, set aside how hard it is to get it, just which status you'd want for the rest of your life. You want executive platinum or you want 1K?
These questions always kind of don't make much sense to me, man, because deciding now based on what a program's going to be in 20 years, who the hell knows if executive platinum's even going to exist in 20 years or 1K, man. So like,
I love that you think that I'll exist for 20 years. That's the first year.
I mean, you'll be 96, but geez, you can still, you can do it. I mean,
which airline are you trusting more? And then also when you talk about alliance status, would you rather be One World Emerald for the next 20 years, or would you rather be Star Alliance Gold?
Star Alliance just is much more applicable. It has been over the years to me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's, I live in a Sky Team city, but I find Star Alliance to be just much more robust than One World, so I'm probably shooting for 1K. United also, I think, is on the up and up right now versus American. But again, it's a very time shot, view of things. So for no particular reason other than maybe Star Alliance is more helpful and advantageous to me over the years, I would go for 1K.
Interesting. Yeah, I still don't know which one I'd choose. I've had good experience with both. I have a lot of bias towards American based on, some of the greatest, times that I flew them when the service was just excellent, the way they took care of people, stuff like that. So probably have some implied bias there. I think, to your point, I like the European and the Asian connections on Star Alliance, especially with me living in Dulles, probably leans me in that direction from a geographic standpoint, but it's tempting to consider executive platinum for life just because I've been treated so well by them over the years. That being said, having flown them a handful of times in the past few months, at this point, I would say almost certainly I'm going to shoot for them as my backup carrier on anything that's a connecting flight, because I need, call it 700,000 miles to get to Platinum Pro, which would get me lifetime One World Emerald. And I do think there's value in that. Not a ton of value, but I think it's realistic that in my waning years that I could put up 700,000 miles on American. At least for the next couple of years, I'll be executive platinum. I'm sure I'll requalify this year. So I've got 2 years worth of them as a backup carrier to sort of edge me closer to 4 million lifetime on American. So I think that's my plan for right now. I still don't know which one I'd choose if I had to choose one, but I'll be curious to hear what our listeners and viewers say.
Lifetime status, just not there, except for Marriott. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm lifetime Marriott status. Let me get my list of all the valuable things I get for my lifetime Marriott status.
I think I'm still lifetime silver. I got to work on my lifetime gold.
There you go. All right, so while we're talking about American, let's talk a little bit about my flight home from New York when I was with you for the Built event 2 weeks ago. So it was really interesting. It's a new feature on Flighty. I would say it's a little bit of a knock on American. I still don't know exactly how I'd expect an airline to handle this, but you and I talked about this while we were just finishing up the meetings there. I had a late afternoon flight, like a 5 p.m. something departure that was still showing as on time by American Airlines and by Flighty. But there's a banner at the top of Flighty now, and they've been doing some things with AI that some of it's not, I wouldn't say terribly helpful. This was a really helpful addition. It showed my flight time, but then right below it, it said, your takeoff slot is 2 hours and 20 minutes after your departure time. And it was the first time that I'd seen this. Since the crash at DCA, they pulled some slots down out of the airport, and there was weather at DCA. And you could see the flights throughout the day. They started out 20 or 30 minutes delayed, and then as it got to lunchtime, they were an hour delayed. So you could see this happening, that because they had slowed down takeoffs and landings that day, probably mostly landings, they were just running behind, and there just weren't enough slots to keep up. So 2 things here. First off, I thought this was a really cool Flighty feature. You're still, because the flight was still showing on time, you're still debating whether or not you want to take the risk of showing up at the airport. In this case, the moment that the flight was quote unquote scheduled to depart, meaning at that point I assume everybody had boarded, Flighty and American then officially delayed the flight 2 hours. So it sounds like they my guess is that they at least got everybody on board. Maybe they closed the door, so maybe you wouldn't have had a choice. But by getting that information, I was able to pivot and jump on an Amtrak flight and make it home for dinner. Oh, sorry, Amtrak train.
Love
and
those
make it
Amtrak
home.
flights.
Those Amtrak flights are great, especially their frequent flyer program. But I was able to make it home for dinner. So I thought it was a cool Flighty feature. I guess, in your opinion, this is something I still struggle with. If you knew for certain, if you're American Airlines and you know for certain, or with some high level of certainty that the flight's not going to actually take off for a couple hours after because of slot problems at the other airport, and the very, very, very small chance that somehow you get a miracle and you get to take off early, do you still board everybody and make them sit in the plane for 2 hours and not tell your customer?
No, you don't board. I actually just went through this with a coworker last weekend. So several coworkers have me on speed dial when they're doing travels and IROPS pop up. And I saw the new Flighty feature for her flight. I put her flight in my friend's flight on Flighty, and it said, hey, your takeoff slot is like 1:30, and her departure time was noon. She was trying to get back to New York City when all that crap was going through a couple weekends ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, do I still have to show up to the airport on time? And I was like, you're going to hate this answer, but yeah, because you just never know when it comes to ATC slots. And like, I've definitely had slots bumped up before, and if the airline's not officially delaying the flight, then you got to go on time. But I did see that, and throughout, I tracked her flight to see. I was like, what is this new feature? And sure enough, they bumped the slot up, not like an hour and a half late, earlier, but a few minutes earlier, and they took off at that slot. So I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's useful information just to give you more decision fatigue to see if I want to show up to the airport or pivot now, or see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think, my personal opinion, I still struggle with what the exact right way to do this, but I lean towards keeping the departure time the same so that your customers know there is a chance you can leave early, but I would probably park people at the gate area. Now, it's easy to say that in some smaller airports, you really start to run into gate area issues. As you and I know, airports aren't really built to handle all the people that fly in and out of them on a daily basis, and you kind of sort of need to keep the throughput moving. But man, I got to tell you, if I had a high degree of certainty it was going to be 2 hours before I boarded my flight before we were taking off, and you're making me march onto the plane and sit down and taxi to some corner of the airport, that's pretty frustrating. So, all right. Well, in perfect chronological order, you want to end the show with a little Blade talk?
Yeah, let's go through your Blade experience. Why Blade?
Yeah.
Not a helicopter ride, a Blade.
A Blade. And, this is one of those things where, I don't know that I would ever, spring for this on my own. Like, you should know this. I should know it as well, but what's the cost of a Blade ride into New York City?
So they start at $195.
Yeah.
It is dynamically priced based on, hey, if you're flying out on a Thursday afternoon with all the business travelers, it's going to be up to like $255. Built members do get 10% off if you book through the Built app. So there's always that. I'll tell you, man, I just sent this to my coworkers. I was doing my expense report last week. My Lyft ride from Union Square to Newark last Friday morning, when there was no traffic at all, it was under 30 minutes to Newark, which if you catch no traffic, you can do $141.
Nice.
And I was like, what's another $50 to get on a Blade versus like sitting and doing this? Because how much was this going to be if there was traffic and it was longer? I don't know, man, but it was outrageous.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Built Platinum members get a free Blade ride every year. So, this was a great benefit that I hadn't had a chance to use yet coming in for the meeting. And so it was one of those things where the Blade folks were nice enough to make this free for me coming for the Built event, which was super, super awesome. Never having done it before, I actually had a Blade trip scheduled as a media preview a number of years ago, got canceled because of weather. So I've been looking forward to this for a while. Flew into JFK. I got to tell you, the ground experience was awesome. So as soon as I landed, I got a text message from somebody at Blade. They said, let us know when you're in baggage claim. Do you have do you have any bags checked? No, I don't have bags checked. Great. Okay, we're going to dispatch driver. Texted me once I got to baggage claim, told me which door to go out of, and then a guy calls me, hey, I'm parked right over here. He's out at the curbside, grabs my bags, puts them in the Escalade, and drives me over to the helicopter terminal, which was maybe a 3-minute drive from where I landed at JFK. So super easy to get there. Pretty small facility there, but you're not there for very long. There's seating for 10 or 12 people, coffee, bathrooms, all that sort of stuff. And then they take your bag for you, unless you have a small backpack, which can go in the cabin with you. But all the other bags go in the tail of the helicopter. Guy escorts you across the tarmac. You get loaded in. You've got access to a microphone to talk to the pilot while you're on your way over. We were cleared for takeoff, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds after they closed the doors. And we hovered for just a little bit, just shy of the runway until we were cleared to cross. All in all, less than 10 minutes from there to Manhattan. The Blade terminal is, we'll call it like 44th or 45th, right by the Titanic. It's not quite, it's somewhere right there, but not Titanic.
I was like, is the Titanic Museum down there? I don't think so.
Right.
It's right on the West Side Highway.
Right on the West Side Highway, 44th or 45th. And super, super easy in. And folks there were very nice. The arrivals lounge, there's a departure and an arrivals lounge. They did the departures lounge in the evening does get much more crowded than the arrivals lounge was, but they offered me a bunch of free snacks. There were cocktails, the whole bit. And then from there, it was super easy for an Uber driver to pull in there and pick me up. I could have walked a couple of blocks and caught the subway. The weather wasn't great when I landed, and it was cold as all get out. So I did choose the wimpy. I did choose to wimp out and take the short Uber ride. But all in all, like you talked about from a cost standpoint, super quick. Now, I mean, if you're getting to Newark in 30 minutes in a lift, the helicopter's not going to save you a ton of time. But as you and I both know, there are large parts of the day in New York City where you're not getting to or from any airport in 30 minutes.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough where, they take care of me if I'm coming in and out. If I'm flying in on a Monday morning, then they're getting on a Blade and skipping the tunnel traffic to get anywhere into the city is invaluable. Like that is such a time saver there. If it's on a Friday morning, I don't mess with it, and I just get on the quick, ride over. A couple things about Blade people need to be aware of, and you ran into one of these. They're very strict on their carry-on baggage limits because, again, it's a helicopter, not a commercial plane.
Yeah.
So if you're over the weight limit or if you have multiple bags, you got to pay for your bag to be delivered to your hotel, and that's not cost-effective. Now, I imagine most people flying Blade don't really care about cost-effectiveness. Some people do. So just be really aware of that. And then the other thing is what I've found is the West Side Highway, the traffic over there, everybody, if you're familiar with New York, it can be tough. So sometimes what I do every time now is you call your Lyft, your Uber when you're still in the air in the helicopter. So by the time you land, that thing is getting there.
Look at that, Mr. Kerr.
Yeah. Because again, it's a bit of a tough spot to get to depending on where your rideshare can come from. Alternatively, you just tell Blade and they have a black, SUV waiting there. But again, you're going to pay the ground transport cost that Blade charges for you to do that. But the convenience factor of your driver in your car is right there when you walk off the helicopter and you're gone. Like that's, again, everything I do is around efficiency of New York City and my time now of trying to navigate what can be very challenging. But I'll just say, man, I don't know what time of day you flew. I don't know when you landed, but those golden hour flights around Manhattan and the city are just like, it is unbelievable. The views that you get, and you kind of just sit there with your headphone on and you're just like, is this real life? Like, is this like really just zooming around a helicopter around New York City and catching this view that's unreal? And then you look down sometimes if you're during peak hours, you see all the traffic stuck on, whatever road going into the tunnel from Jersey or stuck on the expressway over by JFK. And you're like, man, it just doesn't get any better than this.
No. And it's, from an aviation geek standpoint, that part was really cool. So we did go to the west side. And so that meant coming around the south part of Manhattan. So if you're an av geek, you can think about these sorts of things. You want to be, you want to be on the right-hand side of the helicopter if you're coming from JFK and going to the west side. I messed that part up. But whoever goes out first from the JFK terminal is the person who's going to get loaded in the right-hand side of the helicopter because they load from the left side of the helicopter. So noted for next time, like plenty of, views. And we'll upload some of those here for folks who can see what it's like to be on the helicopter. But, love the views. I wish it was a little bit clearer day, to your point of getting to see some of the sunshine and sunset, stuff like that. It was great. You talked about it being a bit messy down there from a traffic standpoint. And you've got is it the 7 train that goes to that side? The newer subway line. I'm pretty sure it's a 7 train. And I think that goes, you're probably talking a couple of blocks.
It's a solid 15-minute walk to the subway from.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike, but if you're in decent shape and you don't mind walking, I think that can be a good way to get into the heart of the city if you don't want to get stuck with snarl traffic. So big thanks to the Blade folks for having me. I loved it. I think it's an awesome benefit of Built Platinum status. Again, not the sort of thing I'm gonna pay for every time out of my own pocket, could see situationally where it would fit me, but it's also was a really cool experience. So, Mr. Kerr, thank you for helping make that happen, and thanks to the Blade folks.
Yeah, hope everybody gets to do it once. We've had so many people use it for like surprise and delights for their significant other when they're flying in or out of the city. We get so that partnership just punches so above its weight in the number of participants, just because of the stories that we get and the pictures that we get of, look what, surprise my fiance, surprise my husband, surprise my wife. We got, the Escalade picks you up. You just missed it, man. They had MyBox at JFK. They had a partnership with MyBox, and the MyBox picked you up and took you between the terminal and the FBO. And like riding in a MyBox for 3 minutes is just, I'm never going to be in a car that expensive again.
Right. I was going to say that's 3 minutes more than I'll ever ride in one.
Yeah. But sadly now you just have to suck it up in brand new, shiny, luxurious Escalades for the 3-minute ride over the FBO. But it's been a lot of fun with that partnership. Yeah. Everybody's asking, is it here to stay? Like, yeah, it's sticking around for the long haul.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to doing it again in the future as I hopefully keep my built platinum status for at least another year. So I won't rub salt in the wound and ask where you're going this week. I will just say that I hope that there's a humorous chapter 4 and not a negative turn next week when it comes to checking in on Kerr's calf muscle.
Me too.
All right, Mr. Kerr. Well, I don't know if either one of us is getting on a plane this week, but I'm sure there will be stuff to talk about, including Spirit change fees, which just popped up before we recorded. We did not get a chance to talk about that Spirit mayhem that you flagged at the gate area, which looked pretty spicy, and all the other stuff that comes with the crazy world of travel that you and I get to live in and week out. I have a feeling that by the time we get to next week, I still won't have tickets home from Tokyo in April. Hopefully I get lucky and find a way to get back from Asia in a couple months.
I did a search while we were chatting. I found you the perfect business class itinerary, one stop.
Perfect.
87,500 airplane points and $56.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to make a stopover in Delhi with 2 legs on Air India. Like this.
There you go. Yeah.
It's no problem. You can do it. It's a lovely ride. I've done it. This is firsthand experience, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not doing that.
I got to say, I'm not necessarily against going the long way to Asia. I don't think it's going to include Air India.
But they do. They still have Russian overflight rights, so it's the short way technically. Really, if you're trying to get down there to the subcontinent.
Turkish, I would consider, but if I'm gonna try Air India one day, I don't think it's going to be over a major ocean. Just saying. That's my guess.
You're going over the polar cap. That's the Russian overflight. You're not going over the ocean.
Oh, my bad, Mr. Kerr. I really appreciate that clarification. I appreciate the care and sensitivity that you share about me on a daily basis. I really do.
I'm trying to get you to take this flight so we can have excellent content.
That would be excellent content. Excellent content. I might be in traction for 3 months, but it would be excellent content.
No, the seats are fine.
All right, Mr. Kerr, I hope that you are well on the mend next week. I hope you enjoy the train ride to and from New York City to Atlanta.
What did we say? It was 19 hours if you want to take the Amtrak from Atlanta to New York City?
Like the Palmetto line or something like that. I hope it's wonderful. I'll wave at you from my house as you chug by on Amtrak, and maybe one of us will get on a plane sometime here in the near future. But until we upload again, Mr. Kerr, we've got miles to go.
Pause. Pause.
Come back to me, Richard. Where are you? I miss you. Oh, Mr. Kerr. We miss you. We miss you. I miss my Kerr. Oh, where has my Richard gone? Oh, where could he be? We've secretly replaced your normal podcast co-host, Richard Kerr, with an empty chair. That's all I got for you, Jeremiah.